Good morning and many thanks indeed for joining us here on Morning Prime. It is the 4th of June 2023. My name is Dubala. I trust that you had a lovely restorative weekend as always, and you well rested for this good week that the good Lord has afforded us. I'll lay me down to sleep and I will awake again because He sustains me. That is what the good book says, and we're glad that we have a new day. And talking about new day, today is World Environment Day, where we are being implored and urged to make sure that we observe our environment and take good care of it, because we've not inherited this from our ancestors, but we've borrowed it from our children. And this year's hashtag is Beat Plastic Pollution. In this country, we can see the resumption of plastic and how it's becoming a big menace, especially to the ocean life, where we have marine life being affected adversely by pollution and plastic. And so if you want to, sometimes maybe you're driving and you're throwing away plastic cans and you've got that particular habit, I think today will be a good day for you to reflect on what you're contributing to the environment, because right now we're smarting from the effects of climate change. The drought has adversely affected the whole of Africa. Here in the country, we're talking about 4 million people who are starving, and some of them now have died because of hunger. And even as Kenya celebrates 6 years of independence, it's quite a shame that we still have people in this country who have pail in their hands begging for food, when we've been talking about food security for the longest time. And that has been key pivotal pillar in some of the previous regimes as far as food security is concerned. But right now, many Kenyans are waking up to high cost of living, and this is bound to be affecting also the plate on the table, how wide or big it will be to be shared by the family members. Some have pared down on a lot of food items because of high cost of living. This week is a big week also in Parliament, resumption of it tomorrow. And talking about food security, this is all pegged in that food, or that particular Finance Bill 2023 that is very contentious. But we have the president who has been very categorical. He says, sink or swim. Like it or lump it, this bill has to be passed by parliamentarians. And of course, he's read the Riot Act to some of the MPs that will not really budge. We're eagerly wait to see what will really happen. The civil society have spoken, and we can see there is some hints of dictatorship as far as this bill is concerned. He says this is for the common good, but almost all the civil society organizations and trade unions have stoutly denied the Finance Bill 2023. That also will be a big part of our discussion this morning with our panelists. Also, Shakahola, the exhumation of bodies from the shallow graves continues tomorrow apace, and the numbers keep ticking up, and we'll be hearing from also the Cabinet Secretary. So let's put this horse into full run by looking at the dailies, what it holds for us this morning, even as we're waking up. And we begin with the bold paper. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of The Standard today. Kenyans look to MPs to save them from tax burden. It says here, it is a tough task. The National Assembly resumes sitting tomorrow with huge weight on their shoulders. The executive is adamant that no matter what Kenyans feel, they will have their way. Wananchi say how the leaders will legislate will determine whether cost of living gets bearable or not. And some of the sentiments that have been aired so far, we have President William Ruto saying, quote unquote, I'll be waiting to see that MP who will vote against the bill. I'll be waiting to see that MP who will vote against the bill. I'm waiting to see where they will stand so that we know who are against our plan, which we sold to Kenyans during the campaigns. We cannot be people of the seat, he says. We have also Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying, quote unquote, there is no problem with the people. It is leaders who are lying to them. If your MP says people should not pay taxes, then he should not ask for roads in his constituency. Once the bill is passed, the noise will last for a few days, then people will move on. This is the sentiment of the president. And even as that is continuing to take the center stage. The dollar is not doing fine, and we can see on the business segment there, dollar inches to 150 shillings as market defies CBK rate, and the pie in the sky optimism of the Kenya Kwanza government. That is a story that you want to follow on page 29 of the Standard this morning. And just to remind you as well, the world is marking Environment Day today, and this you have a supplement today inside the Standard on page 21 and 26. You could follow what the world is trying to do, and here in the country as well, as far as environment, social and governance is concerned. That seemed to be a very high-octane buzzword right now that is being fetishized by every organization, as it were, trying to make sure we are compliant as far as ESG is concerned. Looking at the teaser there, Kalonzo, forget court, rise and oppose taxes. This is what Kalonzo is saying. Forget court, rise and oppose taxes, calling upon Kenyans to rise and oppose this Financial Bill 2023. This story is tucked away on page 4 of the Standard today. And crossing over borders to Khartoum, maternity nightmare. Now with healthcare accessibility affected there, this is a niggling worry, especially for the pregnant women. You can read all the gritty details on page 31 of the Standard today. Also, as well as remember, every Monday you have the Health and Science Bullet magazine coming in hand for you. We now have to buy the air we breathe. We now have to buy the air we breathe. Find all the details about this air that we have to breathe, that it has to be bought. And Benzema calls time on Madrid duty. You can follow the story on page 40 of the Standard today. Let's move on to see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. They used me. They used me. Remember her face? This is the grandmother claiming here that she's become a nuisance as her powerful friends no longer pick her calls. And this was all about optics during the campaign period for Kenya Kwanza, before and after. Well, she went back to her stall. Nothing really changed, but you can see her with the president here, Miss Pauline Waithira. Looking on as Deputy President William Ruto and his running mate Rigathi Gachagua present their papers before the IBC at the Bomas of Kenya in Nairobi on June the 4th, 2022. She says, I was used to illustrate how poor people will benefit from the Ruto government through bottom-up. But after they won the election, I was not even invited to Kasarani for the inauguration. I spent the whole day crying at home. People were laughing at me. And this is Pauline Waithira currently, aka Mama Mboga, sorting avocados at her market stall at Kangangi Market in Kiambu County. She claims she was used and forgotten by UDA and met expectations. On June the 4th, 2022, exactly a year ago, Mama Mboga mingled freely with the UDA and Kenya Kwanza honchos, including his presidential ticket flag bearers, William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, at the Bomas of Kenya. Pauline Waithira, aka Mama Mboga, was the duo's bottom-up poster girl as they presented their papers to the IBC before the elections, which they later won. Now, Ms. Waithira, who is 70, is a bitter woman. She accuses politicians of using her, then abandoning her, and claims she's become the village laughingstock. You have a story on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Those are the murky waters of politics. And also on health, MP's back push to outlaw detention of patients and bodies. Remember, this was a bill there that was being steamrolled by Kirinyaga women rep. And it seems now it has gotten the backing of MPs. Hospitals that detain patients or bodies over unpaid bills to be fined 1 million shillings according to the proposed bill. Read all about it on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Ruto, I want to see MPs who will vote against finance bill. I had a certain MP saying he wants the vote on the bill to be public. If I fully support that, I want Kenyans to know leaders who are against eradicating unemployment. Those who will be opposing the Finance Bill 2023 are enemies of development, said the president. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Looking at the teaser on top here, vasectomy gone wrong. Why court rejected man's 11 shillings claim. This is on page 3. And this year, summons politicians and probe into farm attacks. That is, into tea farm attacks. on the 19th page of the Daily Nation is where this story is tucked away. Let's move on to see what the Star is holding for us. Tax debate, Raila's new plan. Ruto warns MPs is a splash this morning. Government says opposition had the housing agenda as one of its key pledges in manifesto. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. And it says President William Ruto and opposition chief Raila Odinga are headed for a week of major clash over the controversial Finance Bill 2023. Ruto yesterday set the tempo for the looming showdown as he defied Azimio's demands to withdraw the bill that has triggered massive public uproar. That story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star, and you can see a related picture there, the unflappable smile or a laughter there by President William Ruto. Major showdown, President has defied Azimio's demands to withdraw the finance bill, it says. And also today, rogue cops, 4 police officers accused of robbing beef trader of 373,000 cash arrested, and staff complacency blamed. That is staff complacency blamed for death of accident victim at Mama Lucy Hospital. And on the teaser there, free medical camp, boy who is one undergoes brain surgery in Makueni Hospital. New one there as far as referral hospital are concerned, or healthcare within the counties as well. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Star on page 2. People Daily, reject tax bill at your own peril. Ruto warns MPs. It's a hard tackle. President in charm offensive to pass controversial levies at meetings with lobby groups amid onslaught by Azimio Brigade. This story continues on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And here he says, I am waiting to see the MPs who will go against the government's plan to give their voters employment. And President can be seen here with the former Cabinet Secretary John Munyes, Environment CS Soipantuya, and Narok Governor Patrick Olentutu during a Thanksgiving service in Narok County yesterday. On the side, but there, Cult Task Force kicks off. Team to seek public views on regulation of churches after Shaka Holo death. And this is led than none other than the former MP, that is Mutava Musemi. You can follow the story on page 15 of the People Daily. Why CBK will go slow on digital currency. Find all the details on page also 15 of the People Daily this morning. Raila troops set to meet over talks standoff. This is on page 5 of the People Daily. Shabana, one win away from KPL League promotion. That is on the sports pages of the People Daily this morning on page 31. Taifa Leo, Ruto alinitupa. Mama Mboga alia, Ruto alinitupa. Pauline Waithera aliyetumiwa wakati wa kampeni za 2022 kuwakilisha maskini, asema Kenya kwanza ilimsahau. And you can read all the details there on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Also mswada wa fedha, Rais atoa onyo. You know the details by now. You can read all about it on page 3 of Taifa Leo this morning. Benzema awapa Real kwaheri. That story on page 20 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's move on. We buckle down to business a bit. Wire State put 180 billion shillings Mall Summit Highway plan on hold is a splash here. Toll Road, the single largest French project in Kenya. Contractors initially met to break ground in 2021. That is all about infrastructure there. The Kenya Kwanza administration put on hold the construction of the Mall Summit Highway because it was expensive, with the state now pushing for a review of the 179.9 billion shillings, that is about 1.3 billion shillings project. You can read all the details on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. What Somalia's entry into EAC means for region is another story. Somalia is a few steps away from officially joining the East African community, that is EAC, a move that has elicited mixed reactions as the country is still roiled by civil conflict. And on Friday, Somalia issued a public statement noting that the 7 presidents of the EAC countries had signed off the verification report, paving the way for its admission into the bloc. You have the story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Court petitions to liquidate defaulting firms double. Lenders intensified their efforts at recovering unpaid loans from defaulters, with petitions for courts to dissolve defaulters, doubling in the last 10 months to April compared to the whole of financial year 2022-2023. Safaricom stock prices jumps from panic lows is another story that you want to follow inside the Business Daily. Now, 4 banks are shortlisted as lead arrangers for new Eurobond. We have JP Morgan there, Citibank, and also Standard Bank and Standard Chartered Bank have made it to the shortlist for the planned issuance. You can read all about it inside the Business Daily this morning. This is how it looks. We cross over to Uganda right now, where bodies of 54 soldiers back home this week. Bodies of 54 soldiers back home this week. These were the soldiers who were attacked by Al-Shabaab in Somalia. And this is a week that now the bodies will be back in the country. Going up higher, we have promotion there of police or security officers who will be fighting also against corruption. That is on the Daily Monitor. Government delays merger of agencies again, and menstrual health and disability. That is all about healthy living there. And 58 words change pilgrims' wishes into miracle. Read all about it inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. The East African this week, this is how it looks, I should say. Ruto plays West Russia ping pong. Ruto plays West Russia ping pong, looking to save a tanking economy, a weakening shilling, and deliver fertilizer and food to its hustler or hustlers. The Kenyan leader has found dividend in assuming cautious neutrality on the festering Ukraine crisis. And you can see an inset there of the recent visit from the Russian minister, that is Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, at State House Nairobi, where they discuss reforms needed at the UN Security Council, the Ukraine crisis, and ties between Nairobi and Moscow, and of course goodies docking at the ports with the fertilizers that were promised from Ukraine gracing our shows. We have political capital for Museveni in anti-gay law. Now a hero in the eyes of his supporters for standing up against foreign ideology. If there was anything against his 2026 bid, I tell you, it is defeated. This is what is given as a sentiment there. You can follow the story on page 5 of the East Africa this week. And Rwanda wants M23 at Congo peace talks. We have Prime Minister Ngirente saying it's unfair to resettle the rebels without their say in the exercise. And this story continues on page 3 of the East African this morning. All right, Forbes magazine, the latest, is focusing on the future of food. And we can see some of the young entrepreneurs here, the agripreneurs and agritech driving Africa's booming green economy. They're all given their details and the story on the latest copy of the Forbes Africa. This is how it looks. I shall be showing you more of the dailies as we continue. Also looking at what is happening in Rwanda and Tanzania and The Economist, the Newsweek as well. But for now, let me hack back to the Standard as I introduce a guest. This is a showdown that is expected to be looming in Parliament this week. Kenyans look to MPs to save them from tax burden, it says. And allow me to introduce our panelists this morning. We have with us Yusuf Hassan, who is a member of Parliament, Kamukunji. I want to also appreciate the presence of Wilson Sossion, who is a cabinet, the CAS, that is a cabinet administrative secretary, that is Ministry of the Prime Secretary or the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Oh, this is a Ministry of Tourism. I was conceiving that with Maura's docket as well. Ministry of Tourism. And we have the Senator also of Nyamira, Senate Council of Congo Mogini, eagerly awaiting to be joined, the Senator of Tana River. This is Senator Danson Mungatana. But to you, over to you, Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yes. So this week is a week, resumption of Parliament to tomorrow. I know there's a lot that will be in your entry, and on top of which everyone is talking about is the finance bill. Also, we have the issue of Shakahola as well. I don't know if that will be debated, the resumption of it. I know on the Senate bit, we have a committee which is looking onto that. There's a JLAC. I don't know what will be on the item of JLAC. I need just to refresh my memory. It's just eluded me. But primarily, every Kenyan is looking at a relief and respite that maybe the MPs will give on this particular debate that is so heated. And the president seems to be very categorical. Like it or lump it, we have to pass it. We have no choice. On the other side, as the mayor says, we will make sure there is filibustering and scampering of a process so that it may sail. But the David President says, on the other hand, we have the numerical strength. So whether we like it or not, Kenya Kwanza will have to, or the members who are aligned to Kenya Kwanza will have to pass this bill. But good morning, good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning.
So what will be your sentiment on that? Maybe you can also give us a highlight of what is happening in Kamkunji before we embark on this debate this morning.
Well, thank you. Well, a lot of things are happening, and I think it's a crunch time as far as the finance bill is concerned. It has been debated, it has been discussed, it has been dismantled, and people have taken positions for and against it. So I think it will be interesting to see how Parliament would be handling that particular issue. We obviously know the various positions. The ruling party has this particular finance bill as a matter of life and death. It is absolutely necessary for the president and his party to be able to push this forward.
Yes.
Albert Einstein had said life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving.
You must keep on cycling.
Yeah,
yes.
So there is absolutely no return as far as the government position is concerned. The opposition has made its stand very clear, and it's been a very emotive issue in the sense that it's played on the basic survival instincts of the public.
Yeah.
So I think it is now up to the members of Parliament, and I think it will be an interesting week to look forward to and see how things go. And of course, as matters stand now, the ruling party has the numbers. And obviously, it will push those numbers through to make sure that it gets the finance bill. But I also must emphasize that there isn't really much choice in terms of passing the finance bill, because everything, the entire government machinery, payment of salaries, the functions of the state, everything would come to a stop if the financial bill is not passed. It will create a financial and a political crisis of its own kind because of the implications of either changing track or amending it in a drastic way at this particular junction. So I'm looking forward to seeing a robust and an intense debate in the House. And eventually, obviously, like any democratic system, the majority would decide. And many of the MPs from the majority are under pressure, first from their voters, who are saying that this would be unbearable pressure, unbearable burden. And the government saying we need this money to meet our manifesto, implement the decisions we made during the election, the promises that we made. So it's going to be a bit tough for every parliamentarian sitting there, given the weighty issue at hand.
Right. And also for your consideration will be the nomination of Nuruddin Haji as the cabinet, as the spy master, that is for the NIS, and also the CBK governor, that is Kimani Thugera as well, that will be for your consideration. So we saw the vetting that happened, but will it just be a sell-through, or maybe they have...
Well, I think I don't see any problem in that, given the fact that both candidates are highly qualified, experienced, and have done very well in the interviews that they have done. I sit in the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee. We finished our deliberations at the weekend, and we'll be presenting our report to the House tomorrow. So I'm looking forward, in my particular case, the appointment of Nuruddin Haji, who is really a very suitable and an accomplished candidate in his own right. He was the former deputy director of the NIS. He has the experience and the qualifications, and I think he would make a very good NIS Director General.
Thank you. All right, let's hear from Okongo Omogeni. Good morning, good to see you.
Morning, Dibal.
Yeah, you can tell us also what is happening in Nyamira, just an update before we delve deeper into the discussions.
Yeah, I will speak for the larger Gusii. Nyamira is fine. I spent my Madaraka Day in Nyamira, meeting the constituents to get their feel on this finance bill. And of course, the feel on the ground is, speaking for the common mwananchi, the people elected us, this bill, I can tell my friends in Uda for free, is very unpopular, extremely unpopular. In fact, what I'm seeing, what is building up is a contest, a fierce contest between the people and the president on the other side. There is now that contest. I think actually people in Ariaso, they want to see how the president is going to listen to them and how he's going to treat them. And they are geared to wage a serious fight against this bill. And I actually not even in Gusii. On Friday, I was in, the border was in Gishu, Trans Nzoia, at a place called Kapkoi. And I think I sent you a clip. I went to say pole to Mzee Mwangi Kibaba. And when I was giving my condolences, I told the people that my name is so and so, I'm from Nyamira. And I told them from where I come from, the people are telling me their main immediate concern for now is to put food on the table. What worries them every day is not this thing you call housing levy. What worries them is how are they going to put food on the table for their families. Not the thing about homes and houses is of their little concern. In fact, a mama called Anne Maina. After I spoke, she came to me and greeted me and said, "You didn't put it properly. You should have said, Punda anapiga mateke nukufa anakufa." And they said we feel abandoned. We believed in this government of William Ruto, but we see like he has abandoned us. He doesn't care about how we feel. Our children who are earning around 15,000, who are many in ECD, feeling like the little they have is going to be taken away by this bill. So I thought, if the president listens to the people down there, he should use his machinery and have a feel what is happening on the ground before he kind of bulldozes his members of parliament to vote for this bill. Anyway, on a better note, on Saturday we attended the Shabana versus Black Stars football match at Gusii Stadium, and we were pleased as leaders from Gusii to see Shabana win, and I hope if we win the next remaining matches, then we may see our renowned football club going back to play in the Premier League. Now I hope my colleagues in National Assembly will protect that institution called Parliament, because we have a very, very progressive constitution. This country has a very, very progressive constitution. Those who went ahead of us, who are there in Bunge before us, fought so hard to strengthen Parliament. That's why nowadays, we as members of Parliament are paid handsomely. And we get very competitive mortgages, as members of Parliament. We get support even to get vehicles to assist us move to our constituencies. The whole concept was to ensure that a member of parliament is independent and cannot be intimidated by the executive. Because what used to happen before is that MPs were living on handouts. You know, for them to travel up country, they have to go to the executive and beg for money to travel up country. And if you don't, you will find that you are choking with loans from commercial banks. So if you go against the wish of the government of the day, then they just recall the debts, and you find you are being auctioned. So members used to be very, very desperate. But looking at the current institution, we have been placed in a position where we can really stand up and act in the best interest of the nation. And you know, Dibal, we borrowed our parliamentary democracy system, full presidential system from the US. And you can see what has been happening even with that thin majority of the Democrats in the US. There are two senators who have remained extremely independent. There is Joe Mancini of West Virginia. He always takes a position that resonates with the feel of his people on the ground. If he strongly believes that a certain law is very unpopular in his state of West Virginia, he will go against the wish of the Democrats. And I've never seen, President Biden ranting and saying, I want to see if you are going to go contrary to my bill. In fact, what he would do is to try and negotiate. In fact, the same thing with the senator for Arizona. So in a democracy, you have to allow people to think. And the best way I see it happening is that the executive will propose a law. When it goes to parliament, there will be a negotiation. It's not the way you are telling us that this bill must pass word by word. The way my friend Senator Cheragei says, not even a comma, not even a full stop will be removed. That's not the way you do legislation. Executive should make a proposal. You do public participation, and in this case, go to parliament and see the number of Kenyans, the number of organizations that have, aired their protest in terms of the memorandum presented to Parliament. There are many. So this should present an opportunity to our, members of Parliament to come through. Nobody is saying that the entire finance bill should be rejected. But there are clauses in there that are so toxic, so divisive, that if you pass them, you want to strangle Kenyans who are struggling. So those are the clauses that I hoped that in the opening of this week, I would have seen a different conversation where even the UDA members would be saying, we have seen a number of unpopular clauses that we want to deal with. I saw Honorable Kirima, I think that's an MP from Meru, stating that he will not support the proposal to increase VAT on fuel by 8%. If you can't listen to such a person who is very frank and who is coming out to tell the king that, look, on this one, king, you are naked, listen to me, then I don't know what we can. So Parliament is facing a test. And I think how we handle this bill will be a defining moment. If we don't listen to the people, if we don't act in public interest, having the common mwananchi at heart, Parliament will lose credibility. Massively, it will lose credibility.
Thank you. All right, let me just rope in Wilson Susion. Good morning and good to see you.
Yeah, good morning, Deba.
I can see your unflappable smile. I wanted just to pick your, first of all, your comment on what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Because this lady was, the grandmother was a poster child that was used for optics. She claims she was used, they used me, they dumped me. Right now, she calls some of the leaders of the apparatus of government right now, but they never respond to her calls as well. And you can see her life just went to be, or back to where it was before, selling avocados, still at the same store. So was it just for the optics?
Before that debacle, I think on general comments, just like Mheshimiwa of Kamugunji and Senator Mugweni, the general outlook of the country, of course, now parliamentarians are coming back after fresh after a long recess. Hopefully they've been consulting the constituents. And contrary to what my brother Omogen is trying to look at, and of course the usual fishing expedition of trying to bastardize the finance bill, a lot has happened. And on the side of government, government has done a lot in terms of sensitizing the necessary organs and even the people about the finance bill. Demonizing it is not right, and taxation to deliver services. If we talk about people suffering, the people who are suffering, you must deliver service to alleviate the suffering. That alleviation of the suffering will be executed through taxes. And the standard practice of tax collection to be able to deliver services is at least collecting between 20 to 25% of the GDP. We have a GDP of 13 trillion. And a lot has been worked out that goes into the finance bill. And if you look at 13 trillion, Kenya should be collecting at least 3 trillion, 3.25 trillion to be able to deliver services. When Moi retired, Kenya was collecting 250 billion shillings as per the economy at that time in 2002. And when Kibaki retired, Kenya was collecting 1 trillion. And Uhuru retired at a collection of 2.1 trillion against an economy of 13 trillion, with the huge debts of 9.2 trillion, loans that are maturing, which have to be paid through taxes. So you cannot cheat Kenyans that they can go on a tax holiday and expect services. It doesn't work. You cannot cheat Kenyans that avoiding tax collection will bring food on the table. It doesn't work. You need, the economy must be organized in a manner that it delivers the very essential services to the people, and it is done through taxation. The development agenda of the country, it's not even of the party, development agenda of the country is funded through taxation. So the finance bill has been well thought out. The president has made quite a number of groups and sensitized unions, and unions are strongly in agreement. A Federation of Kenya Employers, and they are strongly in agreement. Kenya Association of Manufacturers and several other groups. So I think, including members of parliament. So members of parliament will be voting freely on what they understand and what the taxation will do. And of course, demonizing the finance bill, there are about 20 tax breaks, 20 areas of tax breaks in the finance bill that are good for the citizens, particularly on areas concerned with gas. About 3 forms of tax have been offloaded, and the other areas is importation of raw materials for various manufacturing of various goods like fertilizers, pharmaceuticals. That one is going to incubate and promote domestic manufacturing of the most essential to make healthcare and agriculture viable, not only for fertilizers, even for agrochemicals that will be used in agriculture, and several other tax breaks. There are many tax breaks. Why are Azimio not talking about the tax breaks that are going to relieve the citizen? Because it is when we demonize a bill that, oh, this is going to burden you, and that is taking advantage of the poor Kenyans. And I think this finance bill has elicited a lot of discussion that then going into the future, some bit of civic education needs to be done before the collection of public participation. That's the reality on this constitution, so that misinformation and misleading the public can be removed. The members of parliament will be voting on their own conscience, individual, as by the provisions of the standing orders. And the standard practice in democracy is that on certain positions that a party has taken a position, a firm position, then it behoves the members of that particular party to support the party position.
Thank you.
And number two, there are those who will also take independent position. Nobody is going to kill them. They will take their own independent position. So, contrary to what Okongo Mugeni is trying to paint, Parliament will remain free and independent, and the ruling coalition will uphold such.
Right.
Then you've shown me what is in the Nation front page. That is not any news. This is just the usual game of you, the media. You, the media. You, the media, trying to drive an agenda. And I wonder when the media will wake up. We are already past the election. We are working. And when you pick issues and try to portray the government so negatively, and you read headline after headline from certain media outlets, and you can see this is just choreography, and such choreography of trying to attack a given arrangement, particularly the Kenya Kwanza political arrangement, doesn't make sense. We did not expect William Ruto, after campaigning and interacting with citizens, to walk out of State House and go and spend time with the citizens where they are. He's very busy organizing how to deliver services to the same people, particularly the mama mbogas who needed money to do their businesses and do what they're doing. It's already over 27 billion shillings borrowed to the hustlers, and hustlers are active on that platform, including mama mbogas. What the president promised is delivered, and we know the president to be one person. Whatever he promises, he would always like to keep to his word and to his promise. So trying to pick and emotionalize certain issues and magnify them, and even qualifying them to put them on the front page of media houses is nothing but uncalled for media war. I would call it uncalled for media war. And Dibal, you know very well, the media worked very, very hard in the last elections to support Azimio, and that never worked. You cannot defeat the power of the people. And what we see in all these things, what is in the media, what is in the finance bill, is an attempt to try and demonize the government and try even to make it look like a one-term government. And I tell Omogeni and friends and you guys in the media, you are in for a rude shock.
All right.
Even the taxes that we're going to collect,
thank you for that.
We will make sure that we deliver as promised. And once we deliver, that is that will be.
I want to just go back to the issue that you say that we have the lobby groups who are in agreement as far as this finance bill. In what articles or what some of the segment of the finance bill are they in agreement? Because yes, the president met with the FKF, we met with Kenya Union of Teachers as well. What agreement are you talking about? Because from what we read from other dailies, it's all from the publications. It's not all are in agreement, save for Kotu, and most of the trade unions as well are not in agreement with what Francis Atwoli is saying.
Whether the other unions are in agreement or not in agreement, the thing is, an engagement has been done and position has been taken.
No, I'm just calling you on what you said. We need to be a bit factual so that at least they don't say you have said they're in agreement and they're not. Because as far as I'm concerned, the 3%, we've had the Federation of Kenya Employers asking that there should be a revision, maybe even to 2%, aside from the 3% that the government is trying to proffer.
Now, if we get down to the engagements, Dibal, and I want us to be very factual, because probably you're getting part of this information for the first time. There have been discussions, and in discussions, the various organizations could be proposing the different options. But on the house levy, it is agreed in totality that the meetings with this organization, that is must go on. Take, for example, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. They are talking about management structures and implementation of the program as their key concern. And FKE, basically the same things. Unions are talking about review of salaries to accommodate the deduction. These are the general concerns. Of course, they have proposals on how to support this particular program in the different ways that they would want, and those are matters under under consideration. These are facts, Dibal, and
we'll get to back.
And of course, the big issue where we are now is not about whether to be implemented, but accountability structures and how to deliver the program on housing. That is one item of the finance bill. So really, there are continued engagements, and the government is reaching out, and the government is continuing to engage the public on this, and these engagements will go beyond.
Thank you.
The voting in Parliament, even signing of the ascension.
Thank you. Let's hear from.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Development agenda.
Thank you. Let's just hear from Mheshimiwa on that particular note as well. As we continue, what do you foresee, especially when it comes to the House? We have the Deputy President will just play his clip in a bit, saying they should not really waste their time as far as numerical strength is concerned. And people from the civil society are saying this is akin to dictatorship, that everyone is being shoehorned and I'm twisted to pass this particular bill, even for the MPs, that they have no option but to pass it, even if you feel in your heart you're not in agreement with this particular bill.
I don't think that is the case. I think the House is independent, a constitutionally independent body. Members of Parliament can vote on their conscience, regardless of their political parties. And this is the parliamentary democratic tradition that exists. But of course, there's nothing wrong with a particular party leader whipping his soldiers, his troops, or his team. Already Azimio has categorically said it will not support this particular bill. And it's urging its members to vote against it. So we know that particular position. And the government is simply, the government party leadership is simply telling the members of Parliament this is the way they want their members of Parliament to go. But at the end of the day, the final decision of how this debate would go, how the voting would go, is entirely dependent on members of Parliament across the political divide. This is why we have a parliamentary system which acts as a balance and checks on the executive. And it's the job of parliamentarians to vet, to look at what has been said. But also at the end of the day, members of Parliament necessarily would not be swayed by public opinion. They would also make their decision on the basis of their party's ideological position, their party's political position. And I can see no way in which an Azimio member would vote for this particular bill, or the way a Kenya Kwanza member of Parliament would vote against it, because of the political positions the two sides have. But I think if you look at this particular debate, this debate has been surrounded by a lot of propaganda, a lot of speculation, and it seemed to have been hijacked, if you look at both sides, by political demagogues and people who have very, very narrow views. So we haven't really been able to dissect the financial bill and say these are the good things that we must all support, and these are the negative things that maybe we need to amend or look at. And already there are points in the financial bill in which there is a willingness on the part of the government to review in order not to negatively impact on those particular sectors of our population. So I think there is a need for people to look at it. The fact that we have programs, development projects to undertake, we must have the money. The government is no longer in a position to borrow. It must raise money locally through our own means. And the only way that is open for the current government to move forward is through taxation. And taxation is a constitutional requirement in every country in the world. There is no country that is developed or moved forward by foreign assistance or purely loans. So if you look in my particular case, if you look at the housing program, I find the housing program very favorable for my constituents. First of all, it was in our manifesto, both at the political level as Azimio. Secondly, as a member of parliament, the housing program was on my own manifesto, because my neighborhood has a very large informal settlement, and a significant percentage of my population, over 90% of the population of my constituency, lives in rented, substandard and indecent and poor housing. And the only way these people can come out of poverty and the conditions that they live in is to have an aggressive government program that would transform the housing environment, would transform their lives, and ensure that, in fact, they do not continue to live in that difficult and indecent housing. Unfortunately, many of the victims of the severe social and spatial dysfunctionalities that are prevalent in our country, the poverty, the underdevelopment, people who suffer most, have been the most vocal in opposition to the housing fund, because I don't think they understand what it means and what its impact is. And so in some cases you might say that maybe there's some problem in terms of the messaging. But I find, from where I sit as far as Kamkunji is concerned, is that much of the debate and the opposition to the housing fund is political. It has been weaponized. It has been made to look like if it is the personal project of Ruto. Ruto does not need a house. It is the people of Kamkunji, the people of Nairobi, who live in these terrible slums, who need proper housing and their standards of living to be uplifted by an intervention from the government side. And I think a housing levy is one way of being able to do such a program successfully. And in that sense, if you balance, there are some good things in the financial bill,
yes,
and there are some bad things. And we need to be objective and balanced when we are debating it and looking at it.
Indeed, as you say, so this is a matter of eat the fish, spit out the bones. So there is some good items within the finance bill, as well as ones which are very contentious as far as we are concerned in this. And I think Honorable Sossion has highlighted some of them. But when we come back, we want to take a short break right now. We want to also listen to what were the sentiments over the weekend on the soapbox, to just get the feel and flavor what the politicians from both sides of the divide, Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, are feeling in regard to this particular finance bill. Plus, the bipartisan talks seems to have collapsed and it has been postponed indefinitely. What does it really portend right now for some of the contentious issues that were to be addressed, one of which now is IBC? Remember, as we mentioned last week, we have the days ticking off the calendar towards also the election date that was meant to be done in Mandera. We're talking about Wasani there, where there is a vacant seat. There's a vacant seat after the demise of the member of parliament who passed on by road accident there, where he was hit by a motorcycle. And now we don't have an IBC in place. We're in critical phase or place, I should say, as far as that particular by-election is concerned. We take a short break right now. Remember, also today is World Environment Day. Beat plastic pollution is the hashtag. We observe Mother Earth and some of the specter of climate change that is adversely affecting everyone, you and me. We take a short break. We circle back with more. Don't go away.